Look very closely at his neck in this picture. This is what muscle compensation looks like when a general posture is not able to be held. Okay, so when he's leaning forward, his neck muscles and his upper chest muscles have to kick on. They are supporting him from falling forward. I had a client recently who was convinced that she needed to do crunches or sit ups to maintain a flat stomach. There's absolutely no scientific evidence that can back up the statement and the assertion that doing crunches is going to make you thinner in the belly. That's not how you lose belly fat. That's how you may work out the ab muscles, but it's not going to lead to getting a smaller belly. So the person on the left may feel that that's what she needs to do to look like the person on the right, but the person on the right, she's not going to maintain a flat stomach by doing those crunches. And doing a curl up the way that she's doing it, it may or may not be good for her body. It's generally very stressful on the neck, and there are ways to do it that aren't as stressful. There are more efficient exercises that you can use if you want to work your core out. In real life, we just want to be able to pick up our kids. We just want to be able to pick something up off the ground. I want to go play soccer. I want to go play volleyball with my friends. I want to play basketball, golf, name your sport. In this case, her sport right now in the middle just happens to be playing with her kid. If you cannot play with your kids and it's killing you because mentally you just think, I should be able to do that, it could be something in the way that you move that's preventing you from getting to the ground. If you have a heel spur, a bone spur of some sort, it impedes the way that you move your joints. If you have a shoulder issue, it impedes the way that you're able to lift people up off the ground or put something overhead like a suitcase if you're traveling. The way that you need to move is the way that you need to prepare your exercise. So, whatever you're going to be doing, prepare to move that way. Just so you know, there is no actual magic pill. What you see in the picture is someone who has adapted to throwing a baseball overhand. But this is a normal adaptation to throwing a baseball. So it doesn't really matter if you're in high school, college, and professional sports. Not every pitcher throws with the same motion, and not all mechanics are the same. You could switch to event like track. When someone is running a 200-meter or longer race, they take left-hand turns. That means that since their person is turning left, their right leg has to keep up with the left leg. The left leg doesn't have as far to go around the track, so the right leg going further, it has to also move faster. The legs are actually moving at different speeds. In general, challenges are a very good thing. Having goals in your workouts and whatever you're doing to move, someone who can't walk right now wants to walk by themselves, that's a really good thing. Not all challenges are going to be carrying the same weight as far as how good they are for you. So if it's not sustainable, it's probably not going to be beneficial for you. There are many ways that you can lose weight. If one person chooses to starve themselves, that's not sustainable, it's not healthy, it's not going to be good for a person. The product that you see here doesn't actually equate to moving better. So if you have back pain and it's because your core doesn't work the way it's supposed to, using a machine like this may actually make your problem worse. Because you're not actually moving when you use a product like this, your brain doesn't get that connection between working out the core or whatever muscle that it's on and actually doing a movement. So those things have to be tied together, which is why this product is a really big waste of time. If you look like that to begin with, great. It might make you look a little bit more defined in the muscles. But if you don't look like that, you're not magically going to look like someone who has really defined muscles. Save your time and save your money. Here are more examples of what adaptation looks like to movement. This woman, it's pretty clear that this is the only place that her spine bends. Everything else is pretty flat. You could stick a dinner tray on there, and if she was horizontal to the ground, she wouldn't spill. This person over here, there's a little bit more of a curve, but ultimately there's pretty flat spot right there. By the way, this exercise right here, the cat camel, or the camel portion of it, it's actually a pretty good way to start to get some of the curve back in the spine. But the entire spine, from the neck all the way through the hips, it's supposed to have a relative uniform curve. There are going to be people out there who think that they need to have perfect spinal motion going in every direction so that that means that they won't have pain. These are two clients of mine that have a nearly perfect spinal curve. This one, it's a little flat back here. This one right here, it's a really good curve. But both of these women came to me with pain, and it was debilitating pain. Just because you look like you can do certain things, she could touch her toes really well, that doesn't mean that they won't have pain. And in this case, they did come in with pain. In the beginning of people trying to move with more quality, breathe with more quality, it's really important that you don't judge yourself too harshly in any way. You're not a professional in most cases at what you're trying to do. So you can't say, well, I don't look like the person next to me. I don't look like the person in front of me. I don't look like that athlete over there. Just work on what you're doing. You're going to go at the pace that you go, and you're going to learn at the pace that you learn. But it's just important that you understand every professional athlete had to start somewhere. And they're probably better at what they're doing than you are, but they're a professional for a reason. They got to that point by working very hard. Do you think that your thigh bone looks like one of these 8 thigh bones? This is the 8 most common variations on a thigh bone. That's all determined based on your individual anatomy. Every bone in your body is formed a little bit different. Even the straight bones may have a little bend in them. Some of them, like for instance, my lower legs, the big bones, they're bowed. So they're not going to look straight in any way. So if I'm standing with my feet together, my knees will never touch. It's anatomically impossible for my knees to touch when I have my feet together standing because of the way that the bones were formed. That doesn't mean that it's normal for you, it just means that it's normal for me. When you think of what normal is, just understand that your individual anatomy makes the way that you were formed normal for you. I've lost count of the number of clients who've come in and said, I have tight hamstrings. I need you to loosen them up. In my early years of doing massage, I really had no idea how to correct the problem other than to just massage the muscles and make them looser. People would go away and they would feel better. But there were many people who would go away from me treating them and their problems wouldn't have gotten any better. The second that they were up on their feet, the problem returned. And it's because I didn't know what was causing the problem. So if we look at pelvic tilt going posterior or pelvic tilt going anterior, we can determine whether or not the hamstrings are already going to be tight. So for someone who can't touch their toes, if they have tight hamstrings, the first thing that I would look at is the pelvis going forward? If the pelvis is going forward, it just means that the hamstrings are already going to get stretched by the hips being rotated forward. So if you can't touch your toes and you can't get out of an anterior tilt in your hips, it means that you're going to be stuck with tight hamstrings until you can learn how to get your hips into a more neutral alignment. There are two ways that I look at people with their posture and how they breathe. This would be the first one. I call it a scared turtle. This is a person who their shoulders are always going to be towards their ears. There are some clients I've had where they just feel like they can't get their shoulders away from their ears. This person is more likely to have an anterior tilt in their hips. This person is going to have a sway back in their lower back. This person is also going to have issues in their pelvic floor activation. Anybody who has some variation on plantar fasciitis or the back of their legs being tight a lot, this stuff all goes hand in hand. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have tight hamstrings, but it potentially can if they have the anterior tilt in their hips. If you sit down, put your shoulders towards your ears, take a deep breath in, and make sure you exhale, it is going to more likely be easy for you to inhale than it is to exhale. When you look at this picture compared to the one in the last slide, you're going to notice something very different. Their shoulders are really far away from their neck. So if they look like a giraffe, this person, it's going to be much easier for them to take a breath out than it is to take a breath in. This person in this posture doesn't have the ability to arch their back very well either. The way that you breathe and the way that your posture is definitely going to impact just your daily life. For every inch your head goes forward, the head relatively doubles in weight. So this person's head would be about 60 pounds.